What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're going to be taking a look at a book. That's right. For the first time on this channel, we're going to be doing a book review. I'm actually really excited to start doing this thing because I've always wanted to start reviewing some type of books or comic reviews on the channel. I think it's only appropriate that I started off with a book that was recently published by one of my closest friends. And the book that he published is called Random, and the author in question is called Derken Lema, who is one of my closest friends. He recently published this book that he's been working on for quite a while, and he finally got it published earlier this year, and I'm very proud of him for doing so. So, with all that out of the way, I'm going to illustrate my pros and my cons about this book. I'm going to illustrate what I liked and what I did not like, while at the same time trying to give it a fair critique. Now he knows me better than anyone I know. He knows I'm not going to kiss his ass. I'm not going to hold his hand. He knows that if I don't like something, I'm going to say it. But he also knows that I'm going to say it in a way that's not going to be hurtful. It's going to be done in a way where it's like, hey, listen, look at it as a way to improve on yourself. So, without any further ado, let's lay the groundwork. Let's just get right onto it. I overall thought that this particular story was quite good. It's not the best thing I've ever read in my life, and it ain't a story that's going to make you feel like, wow, oh my God. It's not a groundbreaking story whatsoever, but you can tell that this is a passion project, and you can tell that a lot of passion and a lot of work went into this particular story. I can also safely assess that I can envision someone like a Spike Lee doing a movie like this. When I was reading this story from start to finish, I got the impression of I can see Spike Lee doing something like this. I can see a Spike Lee taking this material and making something out of it. Now, there are certain things in this book that I personally did not particularly care for. There are certain characters and situations that I felt were very contrived and very forced. To give you an example, there are these two characters named Mike and Tia who are a married couple. Now, this book, almost a movie, this book glosses over their backstory, and it kind of and a tragic event happens really, really early on to the character of Tia, and right off the bat, I did not like that at all. I did not like that at all because I feel I did not get enough time with the Tia character for you to have her go through this tragedy so soon. I thought that was just really okay. Why'd you do that for? And to be honest with you, I never really got the notion that the Tia and Mike characters really loved one another. It's said through dialogue that they did, but I would have liked to have seen more scenes with them before you have the tragedy happen to the Tia character. I got the feeling that she's just there as a plot device, and plot devices can work if you do it well. I think this was a little bit sloppy, mainly because I feel like I did not get a chance to really know who this Tia character is, because a lot of the backstory between her and the character of Mike, they're really glossed over, and I really don't get the impression of them being a loving couple, so to speak. So me personally, I would have expanded more on the Tia character before you get to the point where you want to do what you did with her. Another thing that I really didn't particularly care for is that this book has got a lot of sex scenes. Now, I don't mind sex scenes in stories. I don't mind sex scenes in movies. I do mind if they grind the story to a screeching halt and they overall add nothing to what's happening. The sex scenes in this book, they add absolutely nothing to the overall story. They grind the story to a screeching halt, and I find myself just speeding through these scenes just so I can get to the main plot, because these sex scenes, they're not interesting to me. They're not interesting whatsoever. I don't know if you want to do a drama or if you want to do a porno. You got to be more clear with your goals. What do you want? What do you want to do? What is your top priority? It seems like you put more care into and attention to these sex scenes, and you're kind of throwing out some character development when these sex scenes could have been trimmed down exponentially, and you could have devoted that time to building up the characters a little more, making me like them a little more. Instead, you grind the story down just to get your jollies off. Me, personally, I would limit the sex scenes, and I would only have the sex scenes if it progresses the story. To me, these sex scenes, they don't progress the story at all. It grinds the story down to a screeching halt, and it adds nothing to it It adds nothing to nothing. Uh, Another thing that I did not particularly care for is actually no, actually yeah, those are pretty much my two biggest complaints. Uh, Another thing that this book has, it does suffer from having way too many characters, and a lot of these characters are kind of like very flat. They don't really have much of a personality to them, besides the main focal point characters, which are Mike, Latanya, Latoya, this character called Cameron, who messes around with this girl called Bria, and the token white guy named Ryan, who pretty much comes off like a simp because he pretty much doesn't fight for his woman. Now, this is only the first part of it. This is only the first part, so hopefully Ryan can get some sort of redemption in the second part. I don't know. I hope so, because why would you submit your woman to a guy who clearly only viewed her as an object, and if he loved her so much, he would not have cheated on her so much. Why would you let her throw her life away just because he's this big fancy lawyer guy? Come on, Ryan, grow a set of balls and fight for your woman. Not a big fan but then again, I don't want to judge too harshly on the Ryan character. Maybe I will get surprised in the second half with the second half, and Ryan does have a satisfying conclusion to his character. We'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see. But yeah, other than that, aside from those things that I think are very noticeable, and to me, at least as a writer myself, can be can make the pacing very sluggish, very hard to sit through. And I give him credit for juggling two separate types of storylines. He's trying to do a family drama with the character of Mike, and on the other hand, he's doing this police procedural crime thriller with another storyline, and these storylines don't really have much of an overlap. They're pretty independent as of right now. So I don't know. Hopefully, he can find a way to overlap these stories to make them all come together. Because as of right now, they stand together as alone. And there's the only connection between these two stories is this character called Cameron, who is friends with the character of Mike, but he's also into the drug game in the other storyline. So he's the only link between the two storylines. Other than that, there's not really much of an overlap, which is good for them. Which is good. You keep them independent for now until you find a way to really merge the two together to hopefully get a satisfying conclusion out of it. But I also think this book is also putting out a good message, especially for those in the black community who live in like the projects and in the streets. You got this character of Mike, who is a college educated, well off guy, and instead of moving out of the projects, he decides to stay in the city he was born in to give back, to do something good. And he's doing that by taking this kid called Daquan under his wing, by getting him out of the drug ring and having him become a professional fighter, professional boxer, having him go back to school. So there is a good message in this story that, to me, is actually the more interesting part of the story, and I hope the second half kind of elaborates on that more. But given the cliffhanger ending and what happens to the character of Mike, we're gonna have to see what happens with his character before we can see what happens with the Daquan character, which is what really got my interest in this book, more so than anything else in this thing. But yeah, so pretty much those are just my thoughts on the random book. I overall thought that it is a good read, despite my issues with it. I did enjoy it. It is well put together. Some of the dialogue, can be a little just okay. Can you cut it down a little bit? Can we cut it down just a little bit? I'm going to compare the dialogue to Rob Zombie. I have an issue with Rob Zombie because I feel Rob Zombie, as talented as I think he is, he has trouble putting dialogue and words into people's mouths without having everything be an expletive. This story suffers from the same thing. I don't mind expletives in stories. I use them myself, but I'm somebody who uses them very sparingly. I don't use them for the sake of using them. I use them if the situation calls for it. This story pretty much has the ghetto feel to it. Not saying that the book is ghetto, but it has that ghetto urban projects feel to it, so I understand that they will use that kind of dialect. Me personally, that's not something that I would write. That's not something that I would do. I'm more spaced out when I use language in my writings because I want it to feel earned. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. Is what I'm trying to say. All right, but overall, if I'm going to give this random book a rating, I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. It has enough good things to keep you invested, minus my issues with it. It's still a good read, and I do recommend it. You can buy it on Amazon. I'll put the link in my description box below. Anyway, like this video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.